When can you share? I think we can start. Yes. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, How the HBIM platform is preserving Saudi Arabia's heritage. So, tonight we will talk about heritage documentation and how modern technologies can support documentation and restoration projects. We will also introduce the HBIM platform and share how it can help in preserving heritage sites. As we have all seen in recent years, how Saudi Arabia has given strong attention to heritage and the museum sectors in line with the goals of the vision of 2030. Actually, this is growing, focusing on documentation, restoration, and registration and public presentation for the heritage sites. Actually, with this increasing attentions, a new need has appeared in the market. The need for accurate documentation for the restoration projects, as well as the better understanding of the methodology and the techniques used in the conservation and rehabilitation of the heritage building. This is where the modern technologies play an important role, actually. So tools such as laser scanning, drones, digital modeling, and the heritage building information modeling, which called HBIM, are transforming the document. They are transforming the way we document and the way we analyze and preserve historical structure and heritage assets. Actually, FalconViz has been contributing to this field for more than 10 years in the Saudi Arabia market, working on many projects, including historic Jeddah, Diriyah, Al-Ula, and Neom, and many other heritage sites. We using advanced technology and develop innovation solution across different sectors, including heritage, construction, and environmental monitoring and many other sectors. My name is Ali Mahfouz, and I am project manager heritage sector at FalconViz. I hold a master's degree and a PhD in archaeology from Mansoura University, and I joined FalconViz about 3 years ago, and I am very happy to moderate this webinar today. And I'm also pleased to be joined by a great group of experts, my colleague Neil Smith and Amani Wahba from FalconViz, and our international partner, John Sanders from Simpson and Brown in UK. And we will start soon. So to start, I would like our speakers to briefly introduce themselves. So Amani, if you could please start, then Neil and John.
Of course. Thank you, Ali. Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us today. My name is Amani Wahba, and I hold the Bachelor of Science in Architecture from FIT University, and I have been working with FalconViz for the past 10 years now. So I manage the BIM and CAD department, where I lead our digital modeling strategies and also the workflow development. And I'm also overseeing the quality assurance and the quality control through all of our digital deliverables. Over the years, I would say that my work has focused on really overseeing the transforming of the numerous physical assets into structured digital environments through reality capturing and as-built data conversion. And this process, it really is about translating very detailed survey data into reliable digital models that supports documentation, analysis, long-term asset management across different sectors, including, of course, the cultural heritage. To add to that, I am also part of the Metaverse Lab group led by Dr. Neil here, and where we explore immersive technologies such as the virtual reality, augmented reality, and basically how these tools can really help enhance visualization and analysis and heritage preservation. Nice to meet you all.
Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Neil Smith. I'm really looking forward to this webinar. As many of you that know who I am, my passion has been developing archaeology and combining it with computer science for many years. My PhD's in anthropology from the University of California, San Diego. But of course, concentration was in archaeology, and I worked for many years in southern Jordan before coming to Saudi Arabia and working at KAUST. My real true background is in ceramics, so I'm a specialist in analyzing archaeological ceramics, but also I've been using GIS in archaeology for many years as well. And really my passion is has been for the last 20 years of my research or more, figuring out how we can combine computer science, computer vision, graphics with archaeology and cultural heritage to better understand and sustain these amazing intangible and tangible assets.
Hello, I'm John Sanders. I'm a partner at Simpson and Brown Architects based in Edinburgh, Scotland. We think it's very important to understand heritage before making decisions about it. So as well as being architects, we're archaeologists and historians, so that we develop a good understanding of what we're looking at. Over the last 5 years, we have been working in Saudi Arabia, which has been an absolutely fascinating journey, certainly to discover a new or new to us heritage and culture of heritage. We have carried out about 20 projects, mainly in partnership with FalconViz, amounting to around 200 buildings, and also some really interesting archaeological sites, such as the Darb Zubaydah.
Great. Thank you all. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for our attendee and our audience and on this webinar. So I will start with Nell. Nell, from your perspective, why digital documentation becoming a crucial part of heritage management today?
That's a great question, Dr. Ali. If you can switch to the next slide. This has been a passion of ours from the beginning. So FalconViz, just to give everyone a quick background, the utilization of digital technologies to document cultural heritage, we can date it back to when we first started FalconViz in 2014, where we actually went out to AlUla and scanned using drones. For the first time drones had ever been used in the kingdom for cultural heritage, to scan the site of Dedan and also several of the necropoli in Hegra or Madain Saleh. And if we move to the next slide, really I see it as relating to two key points. Archaeology. So first we have to distinguish between what's archaeology and cultural heritage. So archaeology is the excavation of ancient sites. And usually when you conduct archaeology, you are exposing archaeological sites that have been preserved for thousands, 10,000s of years. And as you excavate those sites, you have to make lots of decisions as you excavate, what sediment to remove, what walls to remove, removing artifacts from the site. And every time you do that, you're basically destroying the site as you excavate it. And so documenting what you're doing in archaeological excavation is critical. And this has been a science that has developed over the last 100 years. Archaeology has really only been around since the early 1900s. And as we've moved into this digital age, it's been very clear that in order to really move forward in being able to document archaeological sites, we have to use digital technologies. We have to go beyond just paper to digital technologies that allow us to be able to document every part. Because what we collect digitally allows us to make sense of what was excavated after the site's been destroyed, essentially. And we can't ever rewind back an excavation. So what we record, what we document is what we have to be able to study, analyze, and show to the public. Same with cultural heritage preservation. So cultural heritage is more focused on once an archaeological site's excavated, it now becomes a cultural heritage asset, right? But then also you have many other things like Al-Balad, Ad and other places that definitely don't date to, that are much younger in age, but they're key culturally heritage locations that are significant to understanding the culture and the history of Saudi Arabia. And so these similarly are constantly going through a state of change, similar to archaeology, in that archaeologists are essentially removing all of the artifacts and removing all of the sediment from an archaeological site. Cultural heritage sites face a similar problem in that climate erosion is constantly impacting those sites. And as climate has changed rapidly with more rain or more heat and longer periods of this, sites are deteriorating much, much faster than they have in the past. Also, tectonic movement, tourism plays a major impact on the preservation of cultural heritage sites. That's why today, even at the Nabatean sites of Madain Saleh or Hegra, or even in Petra, they actually try to limit and distance tourists from getting too close to these sites, because especially sandstone carved monuments, they can very easily deteriorate just from tourists breathing on them. And this is a major issue. And even conservation activities, the decisions that you make on how you conserve are essentially changing that cultural heritage asset. And so all of these activities that are going on, both in archaeology and cultural heritage, I see as the key solution to that is developing sustainable digital solutions. The definition of sustainability that I like to use is the one that comes from UNESCO. That is ensuring the identification, protection, conservation, presentation, and transmission to future generations of the cultural and natural heritage. And if you go to my next slide, you can see that when we want to preserve a site, what we're gaining with digital documentation is that we basically at first we're able to make snapshots in time, and we're preserving what no longer is there. With digital technology, we can allow public engagement to see through the eyes of the archaeologist and historian. We can enable actionable assessment, allow for key conservationists and for groups like Ministry of Culture to prioritize what needs to be protected and allow better decision making. And finally, it can accelerate analysis and dissemination of those sites and the information that we know about them. And really, digital technology is really the only true sustainable solution, because it allows for accurate past, present, and future presentation and transmission, and also drives decision on protection and conservation.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned that archaeology and heritage, and if you can explain briefly what's the difference between tangible and intangible heritage. So
Yes, that's a great question. So the main distinction between tangible and intangible cultural heritage, tangible cultural heritage is pretty much everything we've talked about so far. So archaeological sites, the artifacts that you excavate from those sites, documents, inscriptions, like the one you can see up above. This is actually an inscription of the word Dadan in the site of Al-Ula. Photographs, artwork, all of these are tangible cultural heritage, historic buildings, and so on. But intangible cultural heritage could be the practices, the skills, the rituals and practices of cultural heritage. So as you can see kind of on the bottom right, the weaving of baskets, that activity and the procedures and approaches to it, baking of bread in tandoors and taboons, all of that's intangible cultural heritage. So it's a representation of the culture that you can't find necessarily in the archaeological record. It's not just historic buildings, it's the culture that's within the people and what they actively do. And so when we want to think about documenting cultural heritage, there's two parts to it. There's one, we can use scanning and technologies for documenting the tangible cultural heritage, but also we can use photographs, videos, scanning as well, and field ethnographies to be able to capture digitally intangible cultural heritage as well. And as Saudi Arabia in particular has changed dramatically in just the last 20 years, a lot of that last generation that has a lot of this intangible cultural heritage is slowly dying away. And so we want to really capture that as well digitally.
So I will take from your note that Saudi Arabia has changed in the heritage and the museum sector. So this takes me to the next question. So could you give us an overview about heritage landscape in Saudi Arabia? I mean, the main stakeholders involved and the main authorities there.
Absolutely. So actually, I prepared a slide for this. And really, we can break this down into several key stakeholders. We can talk about the government authorities, the CRM, so cultural resource management organizations that exist within the kingdom, and the institutions that play a key critical role to actually carrying out and working with different CRM organizations to preserve cultural heritage and archaeological sites, and of course digitization. So as when it comes to government authorities, now that it used to be called the Saudi Commission for Tourism and Antiquities, and I think that name still is used today in different circles, but really the core central authority that oversees all of archaeological and cultural heritage is the Ministry of Culture. And there's also many different groups under the Ministry of Culture that are spread across the country. Also, what's emerged in just the last several years, so in the last 10 years, is the Royal Commission for AlUla. So this is a dedicated commission, not just concerned about archaeology and cultural heritage, but also the city as well. But they have a whole division of archaeologists, anthropologists, digital specialists, all working at in AlUla, specialized in preserving the cultural heritage that's in AlUla. And that includes museums as well. And then you also have DGDA, which is focused around Diriyah, right? So the Diriyah Gate Development Authority. And there's also other groups as well, but these are kind of the core ones that have really emerged and developed and really have driven the kingdom forward in the last several years. If we talk about institutions, King Saud University has been doing cultural heritage and archaeological work for more than 50 years. King Saud University has an amazing team of archaeologists and professors that are regularly carrying out field expeditions, regularly carrying out cultural heritage preservation groups, training up the next generation of students. And several of the archaeologists have moved on. So Dr. Shanabi, Professor Shanabi is now actually working with RCU to drive the archaeological program there, and many of the other professors have moved on to create even programs like Dr. Samer's Discoveries Heritage. King Abdulaziz University is probably the second in involvement in archaeology and cultural heritage in the kingdom. KAUS and CACS have played key roles in bringing technology to these fields. Of course, there's UNESCO, and UNESCO has a branch here, and they actually work together with the Ministry of Culture and others. We have Saudi Development, who's been very considerate, has done a lot, and actually FalconViz has done a lot of work with them as well. We have Saudi Ecomos, also the Centre National de Research Scientifique, CNRS. This is a French group that has done amazing work in the kingdom. Leila Naimi, Jerome Romer, Guillaume, some of the leading archaeologists that have done some of the most significant excavations of work throughout the kingdom across many different time periods. We also have the German Archaeological Institute that's worked in Tema for many years. University of Vienna has worked in Korea, and even a Japanese university, Kanazawa, who's working even today now in Neom and Tabuk.
That's
Moving
great.
towards, yes.
Yeah.
And I'll just end with talking a little about the organizations. A lot of organizations, of course, cover and handle and work with these institutions to do archaeology. So you have Simpson and Brown, the Saudi Heritage Commission, which is part of the MOC, Chronicle Heritage, ICRAM, Discoveries Heritage, and HIDEA. So this is kind of like a broad overview of all the different key stakeholders today. And there's many others, smaller groups that are involved in this as well. But I would say this is like the overall broad perspective of what we see today and really what's driving forward the cultural heritage preservation in the kingdom.
Thank you. This is great, actually. So I will move to Amani for documentation. Amani, if you could walk with us through the documentation process for heritage site, and what are the main data acquisition methods we use in FalconViz?
Of course, Neil. Of course, Ali, gladly, of course. So now that we have looked at the heritage landscape in Saudi Arabia, I'd like to, of course, walk you through the workflow of the digital reservation. And basically, what I mean by that is how we have documented these heritage sites and transformed them into HBIM models. So at FalconViz, our objective is to make sure that we convert the physical heritage buildings into accurate digital assets that can, of course, support the conservation, research, and the long-term heritage management. From what you see right here in this workflow, in the diagram, the workflow we follow, it moves through several stages, right? So we begin first with reality capturing using the terrestrial laser scanning. And of course, this records the structure with very high accuracy. Then from there, we generate the 3D point clouds, which has become the foundation for performing the HBIM model. And then finally, all of this information can be integrated into a digital platform where it becomes accessible to the engineers, researchers, and of course, decision makers as well. Let me go further into our process. So, as mentioned, the first step in the HBIM workflow is reality capturing using the terrestrial laser scanners. And this is the device that you're seeing right here in this footage. So laser scanners, what it does is that it helps us to capture millions of precise measurements of the building with millimeter level accuracy. And alongside the scanning process, we also capture 360-degree imagery. And this helps us in providing visual context and also the documentation of the site itself. What you're seeing right here in this footage is our team on site with laser scanner devices capturing a heritage site with, of course, 360 imagery as well.
So that's great. So I want to highlight something very important about the challenges. So all of us facing from day to day, it's challenging in our day to day. So what are some challenges you face during heritage documentation and how you overcome them?
Yes, of course. So moving to the next slides, I do want to, of course, speak more about these heritage environments and how the complexity of capturing it is. So usually,
Yes.
as you mentioned, the historic districts, they really present very specific documentation challenges. So what I mean by that is like historic environments such as Al-Balad that you're seeing in this footage here. We often face these complex conditions like the narrow alleyways, the dense urban structures, and of course, limited accessibility. So to overcome these challenges, our team, sometimes they have to use these scanner pole-like extensions. Right. So what this does, it allows us, helps to capture the rooftops and also the upper facades in very tight spaces. And I think these videos kind of depicts what we're talking about when it comes to very tight alleyways in such urban contexts like Al-Balad, for example. So what this does, it really helps us to ensure that the entire building is captured completely without leaving any gaps in the data. So because of the buildings are often in these tight urban layouts, sometimes even the scanning positions are limited and visibility can be very restricted, right? So once again, the team have to be very careful to plan the scanning locations because this becomes extremely important to make sure there are no gaps. So how this happens is the team evaluates the site, they identify the optimal scanning positions or locations, and then they start planning the sequence of the scans to ensure that the structure is captured entirely. So the goal is always the same, achieve the complete geometric coverage of the entire building. And this careful approach, it's very, very important because this directly influences the quality and also the reliability of the final HBIM model. So I want to even take you now further when it comes to what kind of outputs are we looking at. So this is a very interesting data set. What you're seeing right here in this right corner is a video of something called a point cloud. So what is really a point cloud, right? The main output of laser scanner is what we call a 3D point cloud. And what is this exactly is it's a digital data set made up of millions, sometimes even billions of points, where they are made up of x and y, z coordinate. Each spatial point represent the x and y, z coordinate, and also the RGB color that gives us this texture and the visual appearance that you're seeing in the screen right here. And when all of these points are combined together, they form a very high detailed three-dimensional representation of the building exactly as it exists today. And of course, for heritage documentation, this is extremely valuable and it's very important because capturing the building in its real condition, as you know, in heritage building, they include irregularities, structural deformation, and also these little fine architectural details. So making sure there's no gaps and capturing in millimeter level accuracy is the key to have very good quality HBIM models. Now, basically for HBIM projects in general, we have two primary deliverables. We do have the point cloud, as I mentioned previously, and this is really this data set is the foundation in creating the HBIM model. And the second data right here is the 360 imagery that I also spoke about before. And what this does, it helps provide the visual documentation of the environment, and it allows the user to better understand the condition and the appearance of the building. So together, the point cloud and the imagery, they form a very essential tool or data set used to create the HBIM modeling and the documentation as well. So in the next slide here, I'm speaking here about, I've been saying HBIM, I've been throwing the word around HBIM, but what is really HBIM? So HBIM stands for Heritage Building Information Modeling, right? And what this means is that it is an adaptation of traditional BIM methodology, specifically designed for the historic buildings and heritage structures. So what I mean by that is that, of course, unlike modern buildings, heritage sites, again, they contain very irregular geometry. They have their own historical construction techniques. They also have architecture elements that are very unique to their cultural context. So how this happens is that HBIM allows us to create these intelligent models that represent the real condition of the building. And it can help integrate these architectural components, the structural components, and the information for it, the materials descriptions, and of course also the documentation of the building condition. All of this helps us form a complete and accurate HBIM.
That's great. So takes us to another point. Once we collect all the data you mentioned, how is this data processed into CAD drawing or 3D models and HBIM deliverables?
Perfect. That's a great question, Ali. And allow me to guide you in these following slides right here. I also have nice visual presentation to follow along. So we have talked about the point cloud, and I mentioned that this is the foundation for a complete HBIM model. And basically now, once the point cloud has been processed and also clean, it becomes just the main reference data set for the entire modeling process, right? And we import these point clouds into modeling environments such as Autodesk Revit. And using this scan geometry, we start using it as a guide and start building it digitally. We start reconstructing all of the architectural, all of the structural, and also the MEP components. So elements like walls, floors, roofs, and openings, everything that you're seeing right here in the screen, we make sure that they are created directly from the point cloud reference. This ensures, again, that the HBIM model accurately reflects the true geometry, right? And of course, its proportions of the real structure is very, very important. So in the screen you're seeing in this video on the left, this is basically the steps of the workflow from point cloud into, of course, there's the 2D drawings. We're talking elevations, sections, floor plans, and then how it goes from the point cloud into the actual Revit model. So we're showing the untextured version, and then there is the textured version. And on the right here, these are, again, the final as-built Revit models. You can see all of the conditions of the actual slanted walls, the condition of the roshans and whatnot, all of it accurately as it exists in the real site. Now, this is a very interesting slide to show right here because I feel like this is really the core of what truly separates HBIM from the conventional BIM. So I'm now here talking about the custom parametric heritage components. So one of the key challenges in heritage modeling is that, again, the historic architecture, it rarely follows standardized elements, right? For example, in Hijazi architecture, what you're seeing right here, we encounter unique features such as the roshans, which are the traditional wooden balconies. And also there is the decorative wooden elements known as the takalil. And of course, there's also the many unique historic windows and the doors and even the historic walls. And maybe my historic walls is that the walls are irregular, right? They're not straight walls. They're they're warped, they're slanted. So all of this geometry is very uneven. It's also modeled within the HBIM family category. And because of these elements, what really makes it unique, they're not available in standard BIM libraries. So we have to create these custom parametric HBIM families. So again, this really allows us to accurately model each architecture or structural or MEP element according to its real geometry and of course condition as well. So you are seeing it right here in the roshans, how there are some elements from it missing, broken pieces. All of this is accurately presented in the model itself.
That's great. So maybe someone asked after we have 3D modeling and 2D and have heritage building information modeling, what is BIM? So what's the importance of which BIM for the heritage documentation?
That's a very good question, of course. So we truly want to show what is really the value of HBIM, right? Like why HBIM matters, right, for heritage. So
Yes.
I really think that HBIM provides more than just like a nice visual 3D model to look at, right? It really serves as just creating a reliable digital record of all the heritage structures, and it can really help in supporting the restoration planning, for example. It can also help with the structural assessments, and it can also have these list of long-term conservation strategies, right? The planning of the conservation and how it can really help enables us to provide the strategies by visualizing the decay, the patterns, the cracks, and whatnot. So for heritage authorities and governments, for example, I feel like this information becomes a very valuable tool for managing again, the historic sites and again, ensuring that they're preserved for future generations. But not only that, it's also good to note that it opens new opportunities for education, for research, for cultural tourism, right? By making heritage data more accessible through digital platforms.
Oh, that's great. Oh, thank you, Amani. So I will move
You're
to
welcome.
John. I will move to John. So for the consultation and turning to assessment. John, could you please explain how accurate models and drawings support structure, architecture, and historical assessment? Maybe you can share with us an example of how this assessment helps in making conservation decisions on the ground? John? It's here.
That's a very typical problem there. Yes, thanks, Ali, for that. The whole HBIM model is absolutely crucial for making decisions about heritage, and it's become particularly the experience in Al-Balad working with you has been a really interesting model to look at 80 buildings, but also I've chosen one here to illustrate the various stages of a process of decision making. The first thing to say is that, as we've seen in Amani's presentation, some of the buildings are actually quite difficult to see. So a very simple benefit of HBIM is that through the model, you actually get to appreciate the size and the complexity of and the location of the building that you're dealing with. We have to have a basis for decisions, and HBM gives us a way of recording and presenting that basis. But the three essential components of decision making are understanding the heritage, accurate surveying, and conservation principles. So maybe look at the next slide. This is for the same building, and it's a typical phase plan, which is a way of recording the history of the building. In this particular example, the ground floor is to the right, so the building is climbing up from right to left, but also the purple areas are the oldest construction, with later phases in blue, red, and green. Now, for every project and every building component within a project, we have to think in terms of significance. So the group of buildings at Al-Balad are complex because they were intensely developed group within a limited area. The area was limited by the city wall. And they've been subject to repeated and frequent alterations as the use and status of the buildings changed. Many of these alterations are actually quite poor quality compared with the original construction. So both in conservation and aesthetic qualities, they're not as good as the original. The alterations tend to disguise higher significant elements in the original buildings. So most of the buildings that we inspected are merchants' houses like this one, and they fit a very clear pattern once you learn the general pattern. We did look at other buildings within Al-Balad, such as 20th century modern apartment blocks, and they certainly contributed to the overall character and significance of the built heritage in Al-Balad. So understanding the heritage of these buildings was a particularly steep learning curve for me, and I really needed this accurate surveying to help me build up an understanding. I was also frankly very much helped by the people at FalconViz who I was working with, because they were able to discuss things such as the planning requirements of a historic Muslim house, together with the way that the buildings respond to climate before air conditioning, typically the Roshans, and how the houses were designed for trade, which is quite a complicated thing, but these are merchants' houses and they had places to sell goods. Often the factors became more evident with the survey, such as the existence of a trading yard, which we didn't know about this house, but does exist on the ground floor. And a trade reception area for meeting and selling. But crucially, the thickness of walls comes out in the survey, which helps with understanding phasing. Obviously, later walls, 20th century walls, are thinner than 19th century ones. Such things as the alignment of doors within an interior, within a Muslim house, to provide privacy. And for each house, we drew a provisional phasing plan, which explains the extent of original and later fabric. Maybe look at the next slide, please. So in doing that, we also produced phased elevations, which show typically this extent of alteration, same colouring as on the plans, but quite often Jeddah seems to have been a two-storey city originally and has consistently been added up with additional stories to bring it up to 4 and 5 stories. We'll look at the next slide, please. So, as well as the history, a really important thing to record is the materials. Quite often that's quite difficult because the materials are covered externally and internally, but it was a crucial thing for our client to understand the materials. Quite a lot of it is coral stone, but we're also recording places where there are concrete floors, brickwork, timber. Maybe look at the next slide, please. So this is the crucial assessment for significance, for making decisions. It's the significance assessment, and it's a bit like a heat map, where the hottest colours are the most important. So where you're seeing orange there, that's the original fabric, which is the most important. So we understand this, the understanding that we've developed of materials and history is summarized in this kind of significance assessment. We look at various types of significance, which includes the potential for intangible. But that includes historical associations, which are intangible, but also how the building represents a historical type, in this case a merchant's house, the quality of the original later design, and the particular character which the building might have taken on over time, and which makes it more interesting or more attractive with age. So the ranking of significance is shown on this diagram. It's vital to making conservation decisions about the building. The parts of highest significance are the parts that need to be repaired and conserved. These are the orange parts. They would be repaired and conserved as they are to protect the significance for the future. Other parts, such as the yellow parts, are still significant, but not at the highest level. These parts can be altered with care to help to provide a new use for the building. But they should be respected. Parts of neutral significance, which are the blue bits, these are parts which they could be retained or altered, and in neither case would it alter the overall significance of the building. So obviously this is where the majority of change to provide a new use for the building can be concentrated. The parts shown in purple are what we call negative significance, and this is where they're generally poor quality previous alterations, where it would actually be better for the building if they were altered or even removed. The purpose of this significance diagram is to advise on good conservation decisions. We can show how conservation effort can be concentrated in the parts of the building where it really counts. We can avoid wasting our clients' money repairing parts of the building which would be better removed or changed anyway, and we can consider where parts of the building would be better restored to their original appearance, such as restoration, because this would reveal historic significance and that is not necessarily evident at the moment. Let's look at the next slide. So another part of our job is to advise on how the building should be repaired. Often this included structural issues. Many of the traditional buildings in Al-Balad are distorted out of position or have elements which are uneven. But this distortion can be part of the interest and character of the place because it is a function of the materials and construction techniques which were available to builders in Al-Balad before the 20th century. We worked with conservation accredited structural engineers, NARO, as part of our team. And they were able to design structural solutions that retain distortion. And this is a specialism that is really important in conservation decisions. So we've plotted the full extent of repairs onto drawings so that the repairs to the fabric could be understood. Let's look at the next and final slide, please. So in a way, these show the result of decision making. The image to the right is a similar building. This is the one that isn't actually building 310, but I've included it. And this image to the right is a drawing which is made over the FalconViz survey. And what it's showing is restoration, in that some of the decisions we can make could be to remove shops on the ground floor if we feel that that reveals the significance of the design above. And in this case, missing Roshans are put back. But what we're not suggesting is that distorted Roshans should be straightened up, because part of the distortion is part of the real interest of the buildings. I should say that this project has really been a wonderful experience, which has broadened my understanding of conservation and certainly brought me into more contact with UNESCO principles. It's given me an insight into a beautiful and vital urban culture, but it's also really interesting to see how our work and the work of FalconViz can produce what a place which has changed dramatically even over the last 3 years that we've been working here, from a place that was almost deserted to a place that is already a really vital place for tourists with new businesses. And you can see how quickly conservation-based change is possible in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's great, and a great effort actually. We did in Al-Balad with you and with Naro and our team in FalconViz. So I have one more question for you, John. From your international experience, what lessons could be applied in Saudi Arabia heritage projects?
I think the main lesson is one that that Neil touched on, and I think it's to do with climate change. And not so much with these buildings, but I'd say about 60 to 70% of Saudi's heritage is mud built.
Yes.
And that's setting new challenges. There was one experience I had at a castle in the Bisha region where it rained and you could see the building eroding in front of your eyes. And that's a really big challenge to conservation, but it's a big challenge to conservation principles. What we're normally told in international conservation principles is that you leave the building as you find it as much as possible. And that's been the conservation orthodoxy for 150 years. But I think climate change has to change the way that we approach buildings, because buildings are better protected against climate change if they are restored to their original condition with their water distributing details and their roofs and their ways of keeping water out of the building. Ruins are simply not sustainable in a future of climate change.
Yes, you are right. You are right. Climate change is the most critical aspect now in I think in all over the world. يعني it's not only in Saudi Arabia. So I will back to Amani. So we collected data, Amani, and we have 3D and 2D, and they have HBIM. So my question is, can you describe the HBIM platform development process? I mean, how do you move from the concept of brainstorming to the final product?
Yes, of course, Ali, I'll be happy to walk you through that. So, once all the documentation data has been produced, so I'm talking now the HBIM models itself, all the 2D drawings, all the imagery, all the reports, including the structure reports assessment that John was just talking about, the next challenge really becomes of how can we manage and access all of this information in an efficient way, right?
Yeah.
So heritage project, what you need to understand that heritage projects really generates a large amount of complex data. So without really any kind of centralized platform or a system, this information can really be difficult to organize or even explore. So in order to address this challenge, we decided that we wanted to develop this HBIM platform, which can integrate all of these data sets into a single digital environment. So
Okay.
that was really how we came up with the whole digital platform. And as you can see right here on the right, there is a very quick overview snippet of the platform. And on the left here is basically all of the documents that we have gathered in this entire HBIM model project in order to be able to integrate it. So part of the integration process is, of course, the platform design, right? Basically, the whole development of the HBIM platform just began with a series of lots of brainstorming sessions. These all involved, of course, the heritage experts, developers, engineers, and we all sat down to try and brainstorm what really kind of navigational structure or kind of data that we want to show, the data sets, and also what kind of features that we can implement, right? So really the goal was to design a centralized platform where different types of the heritage documentation can all be accessed and visualized and explored in one place. So all of this collaborative process, they really helped us in defining the whole structure of the platform and eventually what really kind of data that we need to integrate.
Oh, fantastic.
So moving on now to that, so from concept development, we now have, once the concept development is established, we now move on to the next step, which is designing the user experience, right?
Yeah.
So what you're seeing right here is that we have started developing the user interface and also the user experience wireframes to map how users would navigate through the platform. So these wireframes, they would really help determine, okay, how the buildings can be displayed and how documentation can be accessed. Also, how users can interact with all of this information, right? We have thought about all of this.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's very important that we wanted to create a platform that is intuitive, right? So, and easy to use. So basically, even for users who may not have any technical background, they might still able to explore and navigate with ease.
So you raised a very important point about usability and complex heritage data in the platform. So can you explain more about how do you integrate complex data into the platform to ensure usability? Because you know usability is the most important thing in this platform.
Yes, of course, I'll be happy to walk you through that. So, of course, one of the biggest technical challenges, yes, that we have faced in developing the platform was to integrate the different types of the heritage data that we have captured or gathered. So once again, the project that includes all the HBIM models, the point clouds, the imagery, the reports, and all the historic documentation, the platform was really designed to make sure we manage from the get-go to be able to combine all of these data sets into a unified environment, right? Because this integration, it really allows the users to just go ahead and access and explore the information in a seamless way without the need to switch between multiple software tools. And this was very important because the whole point of creating this platform was we wanted to avoid any kind of external links, any jumping from a platform to another. We want to make sure that we have managed to optimize, enhance, and thought of all the useful solutions in order to be able to integrate everything into one digital platform. And also I would like to also add to this, like in order to really push it to the next level, we also said, okay, to make this platform more engaging and accessible, what other features can we include to really enhance the whole experience? So we decided to introduce several interactive features, starting from the AI avatar guides. And what I mean by this is that we have an AI guide who can act as a virtual tour, and it will help visitors learn more about the history and any kind of significance of this heritage site. Then we have the AR experiences, which if you have noticed in the earlier slides, Dr. Neil was walking around the actual sites with the iPad showing the AR experience within the site itself. And this, once again, it can really allow the users to interact with the heritage environments in a much more immersive way. And finally, I would like to say that all of these features, they truly will help transform the heritage documentation from just like static data into interactive culture experience.
That's
Uh,
great. So now we know about what's HBIM, or how can we have the data acquisition and how we can make it visible. I have now back to Nil. So Nil, can you show us a live demo for the HBIM platform and showing us what are the key features that allow users to explore the interaction and interact with heritage data, and how can we use it, or uh, decision maker can use it?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. All right. So this is the HBIM platform, as you can see here. And you can
Yes.
see that we've implemented everything going from the user design all the way to the final product. And we designed it that you can have both be an administrator or a visitor. So I'll just take you through kind of the experience of being a visitor and the interactions that you can do. So we'll go click on game here. And the idea that we first started with is that we want to tie everything to the core database. So as you can see here, we have a list of many of the different sites that we've actually fully created HBIM models of. And you can select one, like for example, Beit El Sharbatli, and you can enter into that building. And once you go into this building, it allows you to see it both spatially, but also we isolate it. So you can see now it's isolated, and this allows you to do in-depth study of every single building that we've documented. And really, just to give a little background, one thing that I've faced over and over again is, as you saw from earlier on in the presentations, we have these amazing 3D models of this data. And usually our final deliverable to the client that they use the most is a PDF. So that means all of this beautiful 3D models, all the interactivity that's possible, gets distilled down into a PDF. And the PDF is incredibly valuable and usable, but it's not that engaging. And so what we want to do is for the HBIM platform to embed all of the data of the PDF into a 3D environment. So now you have the best of both worlds. So as you can see here, we've isolated this building, and I can pick different areas. So I can say, for example, I want to see the first floor, and it'll take you to that third floor and slice the building. But you can also switch to 2D. So now actually we're showing that exact same 2D plan that was tied to the PDFs, but also you can see it in 3D, and I can switch, of course, to the different levels. So I can go up to like the third level. I can switch back to that level in 3D. I can go to side view, such as I can do a section, for example, we'll do elevations, front, right? I can switch that to 2D, be able to see the 2D view, the right. And so this allows, so one of the first things that we did with the HBIM platform is being able to fully see the entire building, both the 3D model and the 2D overlays, and be able to get that understanding, that spatial context to it. We went beyond that to add a tool that allows you to fully interact and examine the site. So here you can slice the object at different dimensions, like you can see here. Slice it from this angle. I can rotate it to kind of examine this area right here. I can zoom in to see it exactly. I can even control it with my mouse and basically fly around the site if I wanted to examine different areas and slice it according to the different layers. So all the type of 2D slicing that we saw before in the PDFs, now you can do on the fly in 3D and be able to study it at a much greater level of detail than you could before. We can even do things such as adjusting the sun. So if I go back, rotate back to the front and zoom back out, and let's just bring the whole thing. I can adjust the sun so you can see it at different times at night, during the day, and see how shadow is cast across the building and so on. This allows a whole nother level of understanding of the building that's not possible with just a 2D PDF. Finally, I want to show you kind of the key integration with our structural data is all of the structural information that is collected in the PDF is now digitally stored in a database and retrievable. So for example, I can show you here, this is what one page of the PDF of the structural assessment that was done by Simpson and Brown. And you can see this is referring to that building. It's elevation 1. You have this little marker here. You have these images, but now you can get a much better 3D spatial experience where you can see the same model, which is this one right here. And I can swap through the images. I can see the notes related to that. I can say, for example, I want to examine this one right here. So this is another seal encased in RC, and I can swap through the images to see the results, such as the deterioration and errors right here that need to be fixed. So all of the inspection details that were originally in that PDF, now we have a way of storing it in the HBIM platform and tying it to the 3D. And so this is the first start that we did with the HBIM platform, is taking all of that structural information and key information and putting it into a platform that you no longer have to return to the PDF. Everything is contained within the platform. And this can be done for every single site, every single area that we want to. And then the last thing I want to show you is the AR 3D experience. So this is the AR version of that same environment where you can actually go through the site. And as you can see right now, everything is black. And the reason why it's black is that in AR, you actually capture video from the camera, and it will give you, you'll be able to see the actual building. So we could walk through the building and you would actually see the building. And this little checkerboard right here, you actually align to the different rooms, and it will perfectly sync your AR experience to the actual 3D space that you're walking through. And so if you watch the video I saw before, I was actually synchronized with the actual environment so I could see everything is. But since I'm not at the building, I'll just go ahead and turn on the full 3D model. So here you can see the full 3D model of the different rooms, and we have our two avatars here. So I can click on any avatar.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا بكم في قسم النساء ببيت الشربتلي. تفضلوا بالدخول.
And I can talk to this guy.
هل ترغب في سماع المزيد؟ أهلا وسهلا بكم في بيت الشربتلي. هل ترغبون في القيام بجولة سريعة؟ هل تفضل زيارة مجلس النساء أم مجلس الرجال؟
And we can, of course, go to other rooms and explore those rooms. So I'll just go into here. And we decided, you know, why don't we embed the actual 3D model of what we were seeing in the other one into the room itself. So here you can actually see that same 3D model. So it's basically the model inside the model. And you can slice through that same model the same way as you can in the other part of the platform. You can look at the terrain and the artifacts that we place into the room to give that feel of like traditional filling of the room. Here you can talk to characters as well.
لاحظوا الأثاث والملابس والتحف الموجودة في هذه الغرفة. هذه تمثل القطع الأثرية الثقافية لسكان مدينة جدة.
And one of the other things that we did, you can't really see it because we don't have the AR now, but if we look to this wall right here, you may see this these tiles right here, which is actually coral. And so in the actual AR experience, you can slide this marker right here, and you can't really fully see it because we have the 3D walls on right now, but you can actually peel away the actual AR experience when you're in the AR of the room. You can peel away and it'll actually expose what's behind the wall, which is these coral bricks. And we also put in this coral right here just to kind of give that perspective of this is actually where the building of this building came from. It came from coral collected from the Red Sea, turned into bricks, and those bricks now make the final structure of the building. So this is just an example of just one building. And what's nice about the HBIM platform is that we can ingest all the buildings now. So of course we don't have time to go and explore many of the other buildings, but this just shows you the capability and the scalability of such a platform to be able to transform any HBIM type project to the full 3D immersive environments. And from that, I will stop sharing and hand it back to you, Dr. Ali.
Yeah, that's great. Great effort, actually. So I have one question for you, Neil. If I am decision maker or I am a researcher, how can stakeholders like government entities or researcher benefit from using this platform?
Yes, so really our vision with the platform is to make it a tool that's usable for every different group, every different entity in Saudi Arabia. And this really comes from my research that I was doing even before I founded FalconViz. And I call it cyber archaeology. And the goal of cyber archaeology is to employ these digital and computational methods to create these immersive collaborative environments so that we can better study the archaeological record or cultural heritage. With that, there's really 4 key things that we envision the HBIM platform allowing you to do. It allows us to tie all the acquisition work that you've seen to curating the data in an organized way, to providing all of the tools to do the analysis, and finally, to be able to disseminate it to the public. And of course, as you saw with the HBIM platform, we can do both. We can both create all the analytical parts of it, like studying the structural report in 3D, but we can also create these virtual tours that the public would be more interested in. And so this tool, we've now developed it. It sits as a platform, and it's really just about ingesting content. So anyone that's in the audience or that is interested in utilizing the platform for their projects, we're happy to work with you and integrate your content into our system. Of course, a lot of the work would be still the acquisition and curation, but the platform is ready to ingest all of that. And we developed to receive point clouds, 3D meshes, database information, PDF reports, so we can integrate all. And finally, I'd just like to conclude talking about what our future vision is for in FalconViz. And that is that we want to take a cyber archaeology approach to this, both in continued development of the HBIM platform, but also to create an integrated cultural database data center. So one of our big goals is we've actually set up a data center at KAUST. We'll be also setting up a data center in Riyadh, which can house the entire nation's data. So eventually what we'd love to see is to be able to take to work with MOC and DGDA and RCU to have a data center in which all this data can be shared across them, because all this data should be made open and available to researchers. But the problem is that everybody's siloed. So our hope is to create a cultural database built into a data center, means it's accessible online. It can still be protected. It can still be password protected and encrypted, but it allows for a way that everyone can do greater analysis. Also, what we want to do tied with that is an open source tool that I've been developing called the CyberArk Warehouse that the HBIM platform is built on top of. And the CyberArk Warehouse, the whole vision of that is to tie to this cultural database data center to be able to bring all of that into immersive environments. So the videos that you see playing here, this is all running the CyberArk Warehouse and the HBIM platform. And we can go from every individual artifact found at an archaeological site or at a cultural heritage place and zoom all the way out to where you can see all of an entire country. And then we can zoom all the way in to go to another place in a whole nother area of Saudi Arabia. So the one that you see up at the top, that's in Jordan. And then the one that you see in the bottom, that's in Al-Ula. And you can see that within the same database, within the same environment, we can actually see everything. You can go from one place to the next across the country. And that's one of the real beauties of the rendering capabilities that we have today, is everything is dynamically loaded, tiled, and loaded in, so that we can basically have the entire country inside an immersive environment to be able to study it for cultural heritage and archaeological analysis. And that's really our vision with FalconViz. And we're looking for partners that want to do this with us, that have the content, that need it curated, that want to work with us. And we want to provide this platform and our expertise to help them make that happen.
Thank you. Thank you, El, for this great explanation. And thank you all to our speaker. Thank you, John. Thank you, Amani. Now we will open the floor for the question from our audience. Please type your question in the chat, and our speaker will respond to you. I'm also need to remind you that if you are interested in having a demo of the platform and learning more about our heritage service, please scan the QR code on the screen and register and your interest, and our team will contact you shortly. One more thing also for our audience, there is a poll, questions in the poll. Please answer it so we can interact with you. So we will see if we have any questions in the chat.
I saw that there was one question about providing a link to the platform. I'll just quickly answer that one.
Okay.
So the platform, as you can see, it's actually running on top of the Unreal Engine. So it's an application that you actually can install onto your PC, your phone, your tablet, and so on. It's not web-based. but we can do what's called pixel streaming to host it on the web. So if you're interested in the platform, we're happy to give you a more extensive demo. And of course, the content you see here belongs to the Ministry of Culture, so we can't, of course, share this particular version. But we're happy to work with anybody to see how we can work with their own content.
Yes. So, any more questions? That's most of the questions I had along the way. Thank you, Javis. Maybe.
So those of you who
Um,
don't know Jarvis,
yeah.
Jarvis actually worked with us for many years in FalconViz, and then went
Yeah.
on to KFUPM. And I should have mentioned the KFUPM is they actually are doing work with cultural heritage and archaeology as well. I can answer a couple quick things about the challenges. I think the big challenge is that most groups still have not fully seen what is capable, and maybe part of it is that one group that we may work with in MOC and Al-Balad doesn't they don't communicate to the group in Riyadh about what we're doing, right? And so part of the problem I see is with uptake is that people don't realize that these amazing applications have been developed and they're available to all these other groups. And so part of our motivation for doing this webinar is to get the word out there that we've developed these amazing platforms, and we'd love to work with more and more groups to make this as an essential tool that they can use. I think that's been our biggest challenge. Is a lot of times the content is very important, and we do it with one group, but the other groups don't get to see it. So that's definitely, I think, one of our big challenges.
Great. Thank you. So thank you, Neil.
Yeah.
Thank you, Osama. Thank you. Is it a correct assumption that HBIM is a custom tailored digital twin for heritage? If so, are you able to capture paired MBE systems that are critical for O and M?
That might be a good question for John to talk about, because
Yes,
I
John.
know we've done internal inspections. So maybe John, you can talk about that.
Sorry, I heard about the internal inspections. Could you ask me the question again? Sorry.
So, Osama asking about is it a correct assumption that HBIM is a custom tailored digital twin for heritage? If so, are you able to capture pure MBE systems that are critical for O and M?
In short, yes. When we can use the BIM model in the way that we would use a BIM model in new construction, and it can be used in that way. I think the adding the H to it is the part where we can add our particular skills.
Particularly with HBIM, the big difference is that we're getting the building as built. So that means the plaster walls are already on the surface, so you can't directly see the MAP. But I know that some of the advantages of some of these sites is that actually the walls are exposed, so you can track where some of the MAP is located. Also, I know that with our different collaborators, we've actually done physical drilling and inspection in certain locations to get an understanding of the interior of the walls as well. And so that is possible. But we can only work with what we have. And so if we can get clues to where the MEP is running through the walls, we can definitely model that. But it's a little bit more difficult, of course, with already standing buildings rather than your traditional modern buildings.
Certainly in the UK, we've been using it particularly to mark the position of hidden water pipes, because quite often they're buried within the walls, and where a wall can get wet isn't necessarily where the source is not evident. And so for one particular castle, we were able to chart the route of water through the wall and trace it back to a defective rainwater pipe.
I think we haven't no more questions, and we exceeded the time actually. So thank you all. Thank you for Dr. Neil and John and Amani for joining us tonight, and thank you for our audience. We hope you feel inspired and to engage with and support the preservation of Saudi heritage and our work together. And thank you all, and see you soon in another webinar, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.